Welcome to the NorCal Sports Report here from the DreArea Sports Studios in Northern California. We are live here on Tuesday for another episode of NorCal Sports. We had a big game this last Sunday against the Kansas City Chiefs, and it did not go very well. So can the Niners rebound from this loss? We're also going to be joined by Marco Martinez of Clutch Gene Sports. We're going to talk about the Niner game against the Chiefs and their upcoming matchup against the Cowboys. We're talking about the Golden State Warriors as their home opener is a day away and how their lineup matched up to last year and against the Trailblazers later on this week. We're going to be talking some college football scores. Stanford, San Jose State, Cal's next matchup. We're talking Sharks, San Jose Earthquakes, and some 3C 2A scores. All this and more today on the NorCal Sports Report right here on IE Sports Radio, your feed for all that is sports. What's going on, guys? So welcome to the NorCal Sports Report here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We had a big weekend. Unfortunately, it was a weekend that I would like to forget. The Niners took on the Kansas City Chiefs at home, and a lot of us hoped that, hey, this would be like the Eagles game of last year, where it's going to really bounce back the Niners and get them on that winning track. Unfortunately, they came out flat. They came out terrible, and the Niners lost to the Chiefs 28-18. Another 10-point loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. We're going to be talking about some Warrior news as well, because the Warriors are taking on the Trailblazers up in Portland tomorrow at 7 p.m. Pacific time. We're going to be talking about the roster and the changes they made, and also some rumors about some trades that actually didn't go through for the Warriors, and if it did, how it would have changed the team. And on top of that, we have scores from 3C2A, scores from Stanford, San Jose State, one of my favorites, Cal, their next upcoming matchup, Sharks, Earthquakes, and more. All this and more today on the NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. But before we get to all of that, where's my mouse? There it is. Before we get to all of that, make sure you follow IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and over at IE Sports Radio. Also, follow us on YouTube. So go to YouTube. If you're watching this show on YouTube right now, make sure you subscribe to the channel of IE Sports Radio. This channel puts out a ton of sports content throughout the week, and we want to get this channel to 1,000 subs by the end of the football season. And I think we can do that based on the amount of content this channel puts out. So definitely check us out on YouTube at IE Sports Radio. You can also find IE Sports Radio available on Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Amazon, all the other ones listed below. Wherever you find your podcast, you will find IE Sports Radio. Make sure you check out IESportsRadio.com, as you'll find a whole category, a whole listing of all the shows that we have to offer here on the IE Sports Radio Network. And while you're there, definitely head over to IE Sports Radio /NorCal Sports Report, and that's where you'll find this show right here. Also, while you're there, check out IESportsRadio.com. There, like I said, you can IE Sports Radio /shop, where you can pick up some merchandise like this logo right here on a t-shirt, a hat, sweatshirts. Definitely check out IESportsRadio.com /shop. You can follow me on Twitter X, at NorCal Sports IE from the NorCal Sports Report. That's the official X handle for the NorCal Sports Report. And you can follow me personally over at DreArea Sports on X, on YouTube, on Instagram, right there at DreArea Sports. Make sure you subscribe to my channel as well on YouTube, DreArea Sports. And this broadcast is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. This jerky, that's on a whole other planet. You can follow Planet Jerky over on Instagram, over at Planet Jerky on IG. You can also place an order at planetjerky.net for that premium brisket beef jerky. So definitely check that out. We're also brought to you by Seal the Deal Wax Seals. You can follow them on Instagram over at Seal the Deal Wax Seal the Deal _Wax Seals. You can also place an order over at Seal the Deal Wax Seals. Over at IESportsRadio.com. So that's IESportsRadio.com / Seal the Deal Wax Seals. And with that being said, let's take a break. When we come back, I'm going to have I'm going to have Marco Martinez on here to talk about the previous Niner game against the Chiefs and the upcoming Niner game against the Dallas Cowboys. You're watching the NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your feed for all that is sports.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop, including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
Minutes past the hour here on the NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. So, guys, let's welcome our guest. His name is Marco Martinez. He is a host on Clutch Gene Sports. Let's bring him on. Marco, what's going on, man?
How's it going? Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Of course. I thank you for coming on, man. I really appreciate it as well. So, let's talk about the Niners, and let's talk about the fact that the Niners took on the Chiefs. Now, look, we all thought this was going to be a game. Well, at least I should say we all hoped this would be a game where they would bounce back, where they would say, hey, look, maybe this is like the Eagles game last year, our midseason Super Bowl. Maybe this thing will kind of turn things around. But unfortunately, it really didn't. And the Niners ended up losing 28-18, and they fall to 3-4 on the season. Now, before we move on to really anything else, Marco, what was your take on the game against the Chiefs?
Prior or after the game?
I would say, after the game. But
Okay,
let's start with prior. Going into the game, how are you feeling about the Niners taking on the Chiefs at home?
I didn't think they were going to win that game, and I said it a couple times on a couple of my shows. Like it just feels like the Niners are a team that I know the players are like, oh, well, just another game. We should, like, you kind of needed this game for that moral victory in a way to say like, oh, we could beat this team. But then at the same time, I also didn't really care if they won or lost this game because it doesn't dictate whether they're going to make the playoffs or go on a long run to the Super Bowl. Obviously, this isn't a team you have to beat. The teams you have to beat are the Packers, Lions. Those are the teams you're going to have to beat to get into the Super Bowl. So for me, it was more so about whether the 49ers could look good in this game. They didn't even look good. So that was a big concern.
So going into the game now, I mean, Patrick Mahomes was 16-27 for 2 interceptions, and he had a 44.4 quarterback rating. Now, he did run for 39 yards. He had that big run later in the game. But I would say defensively, I thought the Niners played Mahomes pretty well. I mean, they limited what he was able to do through the air. Now, granted, Mahomes didn't have Juju Smith-Schuster. He didn't have, Rashee Rice because he's out for the year. So he was down targets as well. Yes, he had Travis Kelce, but I think this is the first time where I felt like the Niners really game planned for Travis Kelce. They're like, hey, let's not let him get hot like he did in the second half of the Super Bowl. Because my fear was this, is that we saw how we played against Oren Burks, how we took advantage of the fact that Greenlaw was out of the game in the Super Bowl. And in the second half, Travis Kelce went off, against that matchup against Oren Burks. My fear was that, hey, look, if he's going up against Devondre Campbell, I mean, this guy looks like Devondre Campbell looks like a bull in a china shop. Just like he's just slow, he's heavy. I couldn't see how he's going to keep up with Travis Kelce, but the Niners actually did a good job against Kelce as well. Receiving wise, Kelce, where was he? He had 4 catches for 17 yards and no touchdowns. I mean, he had 4 catches on 5 targets for 17 yards. So they really did a good job at containing him, containing Mahomes. The problem was Brock Purdy. And I love Brock Purdy. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge Brock Purdy fan. But Brock Purdy going 17-31 for 212 yards, 3 touchdowns, a 36.7 quarterback rating. He did have 8 rushes for 27 yards. He had 2 touchdowns, but they were just kind of gimme quarterback sneaks. Marco, what was going on with Brock Purdy? Why did he have such a horrible game against the Chiefs?
There's a variety of different things. I don't think Brock's seeing the field right. I don't think what he's seeing and he's throwing into double coverage. I think he's locking onto defenders deep when I'm watching the film and everything like that. That's what you're kind of seeing. You're seeing him lock onto defenders, not taking the underneath stuff. And that's something that we saw him do last year, right? We saw him take the underneath routes. We saw him check it down to Christian McCaffrey quite often. This year, he's not doing it to Jordan Mason. I don't know why that's the case. It could be that the media has called him a dink and dunk quarterback, or the media said that he doesn't throw deep, he's afraid to throw deep and stuff like that. And he's trying to prove the media wrong. Is that in the past where he's kind of taking shots at the media? We're like, well, you seen what I could do, and like kind of like laughed at them, and it kind of makes me wonder if that's the case. Also, I think the offense is in a weird state in the sense of the Niners are normally running the ball at a great rate. Right now, they're like the 12th efficient ranked efficiency in the run game. But what they're not doing is they're not going play action. They're actually going a straight drop back game, and I'm trying to figure out if that's Kyle's doing, where he wants to see Brock in a straight drop back game, or if it's Brock Purdy's doing, and Brock's asking for Kyle to do straight drop backs. I want drop backs. I want to get my eyes on the defense fast. I don't want to have to turn my back to the defense. Is that something that he's came to Kyle about and he's talked to Kyle about? Because we're seeing it quite often. We're seeing it a lot more than the Niners have done in the past. So right now, that's what I'm seeing from Brock Purdy. He's not seeing the field right, locking on the defenders deep, not taking the underneath stuff. His arm talent, it's been something I've always questioned, right? Does he have the arm strength to make every throw in the NFL? Obviously, we know he can make the deep throws, but does he have the elite arm to hit somebody in stride? So, for example, we saw him underthrow George Kittle and Jacob Cowing. Last we saw Lamar Jackson hit Rashad Bateman in stride. Roughly the same length throw that Brock Purdy threw to Jacob Cowing is what Lamar Jackson threw to Rashad Bateman. Like, that's the thing that elevates a great quarterback from an average quarterback. So that's for me where I'm trying to see if it's Brock, is it Kyle, what's the case? And it looks like a little bit of both right now.
You know, when it comes to Brock's arm, I mean, look, I think Brock Purdy is a very talented quarterback. I think he has a lot of the intangibles that these other quarterbacks don't have. Now, there are some that are pure elite, like we're talking about, you know, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, where they have the intangibles and the skill set to do whatever they feel like they want to do during the game and not really have to think about it. When it comes to Brock, I mean, obviously one of his main his best intangibles are his processing ability, being able to process a defense, you know, process his reads and pick the right one to pick apart the defense. Now, it seems like lately, like you were saying, he's been locking on to his first option and then his second option. But then on some games against teams that are quote unquote bad, like the Patriots, he's able to pick them apart. And of course, against the Seahawks, because I mean he dominates the Seahawks, so I think he has no fear against them. But it seemed like when it comes to Brock Purdy, he doesn't have the big arm, like you were saying. The pass he threw to Jacob Cowing, the pass he threw to George Kittle. If those are in stride, those are touchdowns. And this game is an entirely different game. It's a more competitive, closer game. But every time the Niners defense forced a turnover, the Niners came away with pretty much nothing. And they gave them the ball 3 times. The Niners turned the ball over 3 different times. The worst one, now you could argue that the worst interception was the one he threw in the end zone, because I mean you never want to do that. But I actually thought this was a bad sign for the rest of the game, was his first interception in the game where he threw it to his right. There was nobody open. I don't know where he was going with that ball, but that seemed to rattle his confidence immediately. And I remember watching that play and thinking, whoa, what are you doing? Like, this is unlike Brock Purdy. He doesn't throw just errant passes where someone's not open at all. But then you got plays where he throws a dime to Brandon Ayuk and Ayuk drops it. And we'll talk about Brandon Ayuk and his situation a little bit as well. But I mean, that was, again, another just back-breaking play when he drops that pass. And really, if he makes that catch, Ayuk, and he's able to shake that defender, that's a touchdown. If not, it puts him closer, not in the red zone. So that was a huge play that he dropped. And that's something that has become an issue with Brandon Ayuk. But now we don't have to worry about that because now he's out for the whole year, which is terrible news for the Niners. But when it comes to Brock Purdy, I think that, yes, I think he's trying to force the ball downfield more. They're in a lot of shotgun formations, which I'm not understanding. They've gone away from play action because I think that it's like Kyle doesn't believe that they've established the run game, so he just kind of abandons the play action as opposed to abandoning the run game. He abandons the play action because, he can't establish his own run game. And against the Chiefs, I mean, like the first 2 plays were running plays, and they just completely shut them down. Now, Mason did have some runs that were good. I mean, overall for the game, Mason was 14 rushes for 58 yards, his longest was a 26-yarder. But that's, I mean, if you're rushing for only 58 yards, I mean, that's not good. A guy who has the most broken tackles in the league, who at one point was the leading rusher in the league, and the Chiefs just kind of had their way with them. So let me ask you this. Do you think this is a case where, again, a defensive mind like Steve Spagnuolo just is too much for Kyle Shanahan to kind of overcome, especially even Brock Purdy? Because we know that Spagnuolo and Flores have a similar defensive style where they come at you with a lot of free rushers from different angles. They come in on a blitz and they back out and they go back in again. So they're really showing a lot of exotic blitzes. Do you think that is something that Brock Purdy is continually to struggle with? And you think that's something that more teams are going to do against the Niners?
Well, what I see is a lot of defenses are dropping to zones. They're dropping to spots in the zones. They're dropping to, rather than covering guys, they're dropping to spots. And that tells me the defense aren't afraid of Brock. They're going to make tight windows. They're going to make you have to make these tight windows. And I said before, and a lot of people are like, oh, arm strength doesn't matter in the NFL when you have a quarterback you don't need the strongest arm. You need a strong arm when teams are making everything tight windowed. For example, right now, Brock is second in tight window throws, like at 22%, like just behind Dak Prescott. And right now, that's what you're seeing. You're seeing Brock have to make tight window throws, and he can't make those. That's something I don't think Brock can do in the NFL. He doesn't have the arm to do it, and that's worrisome, right? Because like teams did that to Jimmy Garoppolo. Unfortunately, they dropped to zone. They dropped to a spot in the zone, took away the middle of the field, and they're gonna make you make tight window throws, and he's not doing it. So I think that's something that isn't talked about enough when it comes to Brock Purdy. I think Kyle Shanahan's offense, like I do think you mentioned the run game. They're 12th in efficiency in the run game. I think the issue is they're too predictable when they're in personnel types, right? Like 11 personnel, they're throwing it 77% of the time. So you know what they're in. When they're in 12 personnel, 21 personnel, or 22 personnel, they're running it like at a 65, 70% rate. So you know what they're doing. Like you saw on you're watching the film, you could see the Kansas City Chiefs linebackers start banging their heads, looking at all the corners and safeties, telling them it's a run. And the majority of the time, it was a run. Yeah, it's just the offense is out of sort right now. And I don't know if it's Kyle's doing. I don't know if it's Brock's doing in terms of the shotgun snaps. But definitely something I'm looking into right now.
Another thing that was troubling too for me was that Kareem Hunt. You let fucking Kareem Hunt rush for 78 yards and 2 touchdowns. This guy, he was breaking tackles left and right. A guy who was on the fucking couch a couple of weeks ago. And this guy looked like he was an all-pro. The Niners rushing defense needs to be better up front. I thought Jordan Elliott would improve on that. And I do think that their pass rush and their overall defensive line has been better ever since Javon Hargrave left, which is kind of weird to say. But with the amount of injuries that the Niners are facing, do you think that this is a team that can rebound off a loss like this to the Chiefs?
Yeah, this is absolutely. This isn't a back-breaking loss, right? It's not one of those losses where it's like it completely exposed everything of the 49ers. Man, since the offseason, I said the Niners aren't going to have a good run defense. You look at who they brought in, right? They bring in Javon Hargrave from the Eagles last year. Not a good run defender. I don't know why. What the thought process of that was, probably to get more pass rushing ability, which is smart, I guess, if you're trying to be the best pass rushing unit in the NFL. You bring in Malik Collins. Not a great run defender. They're going to run at you. Now you have no Hargrave, Malik Collins, Kevin Givens isn't a good run defender. So I was never expecting this Niners defense to be a top run defense because of who they had personnel wise. Khalil Davis playing good football, but he can't stop the run on his own. You got to have guys who can stop the run. And for me, right now, the issue is personnel decision. Well, I don't know if we want to blame Kyle Shanahan, Brock, or John Lynch for that. But the personnel on the defensive line is not good. You got to have guys to stop the run. If you want to get after the quarterback, you got to stop the run first. And right now, they're not doing it. And that's why Kareem Hunt would look good. Also, Kareem Hunt's looked good in the past couple of games. So I expect him to keep going. And that Chiefs running game, once Pacheco's back, is going to be hard to stop because now they have that play action ability. And that's where the Kansas City Chiefs could beat teams.
Patel has a question here. Well, he has a statement, really. It says, Kyle is the problem. Brock had a bad game. Do you think that Kyle Shanahan is becoming a problem for the Niners? And do you think that Kyle Shanahan is on the hot seat over in Santa Clara?
I don't think Kyle's the problem. I think Brock's the problem. If I'm being quite honest with you, like, I don't think.
Oh, here we go.
When you're, and this is not trying to like be extremely critical of Brock, but we've seen a full season of him. Mm-hmm. This is year 3. We got to stop coddling him. Like, at some point, we got to look at, are you worth $65 million? Are you an elite quarterback? Are you a franchise quarterback? At some point, we got to have the conversations. And people are afraid to have the conversations. Let's have the conversation and watch the film on what he's doing. He's throwing into double coverage. He has average arm strength. Defenses are playing him Defenses are playing him how they play Jimmy Garoppolo. That should be eye-opening for people. Like, to me, when you're looking at this, it's a Brock Purdy problem, because last year you saw defenses do the same thing, and he was taking the underneath stuff. He was taking what the defense gave him. This year he's not. So we could say, hey, Brock, this is a Kyle Shanahan fault. You're okay. But at the end of the day, the Niners aren't putting enough points on the board. The red zone efficiency isn't great.
Oh, it's horrible.
So when you're looking at this, Brock is 9 for 7 touchdowns, and if you include turnovers, he's 9 for 9 touchdowns to interceptions. It's not good. It's not. At the end of the day, when you go back to when people were criticizing Kyle for having Brock in shotgun quite often.
A lot this year.
I've been watching Brock's college film for the last week. He's in shotgun a lot. I think Brock likes to be in shotgun. I think he wants to be in shotgun when he's throwing. Is Kyle trying to coach around what his quarterback likes? And if that's the case, we cannot blame Kyle for doing so, because remember when he had Jimmy Garoppolo, Jimmy told him, hey, I don't like I want the quick game. I don't like your offense. I want quick game, right? He kept with his offense. Now this is the case where he's trying to do something that his quarterback likes. It's kind of hard to critique it when this is what your quarterback is possibly asking for. Because in college, he threw a lot from shotgun. But Kyle, maybe you just got to go back to your regular offense and stick to your style of offense and make the quarterback fit your offense.
And I agree with that as well, because it always seems like when it comes to Kyle Shanahan and his offense, it's like, no, you have to fit my scheme. So I have a way of doing my offense. You have to fit that scheme, or otherwise it's not going to work out. And I think that Brock did that really well for the past 2 seasons, or I should say season and a half. I think that Brock has done well adapting to Kyle Shanahan's offense. But it seems like this year, I do agree that it does feel like Kyle is making adjustments to kind of fit the offense around what he thinks Brock is better at. And I think that that's kind of having a negative effect. I mean, how many times have we seen him come out and just straight shotgun? Against the Vikings, and this really pissed me off. Against the Vikings, it's 4th and goal, and you're on like the 2-yard line. Instead of just hanging the ball to Mason and have Juszczyk lead block, just I formation goal line, just bash that ball in. He comes out in shotgun, and I'm like, okay, now you're telling the defense that you're in shotgun, so you're going to throw the ball because it was an empty backfield. So Van Ginkel, who's already coming in on a blitz or already coming in on the right side, is like, well, he's in shotgun. I'm going to put my hands up. So what does he do? He comes in on the left side, puts his hands up, bats the ball down, and then turnover on downs. It's kind of like you're coming out in shotgun on the goal line. You're telling the defense, I'm going to throw the ball. I mean, like, you can't just script your offense that way. You can't let the defense know, hey, this is what we're doing. Get ready. There has to be a little more deception kind of built into it. And I felt like last year we saw more of that. We saw more of, instead of handing the ball off to to CMC, he would hand it to, Debo on an end around, he'd score a touchdown. Or they hand it to Juszczyk, or of course they would hand it to CMC. But you saw a lot of variation in what they would try and do, a lot of trickery. There was one play, for instance, where Brock had the ball. He faked a shovel, or he gave it to Debo, then faked a shovel pass to CMC, and Debo scored against the Eagles. I mean, things like that we're not seeing that innovative style of offense that we saw last year from Kyle Shanahan. And I'm trying to figure out why. So let me ask you this. So you said the problem that you felt the problem right now is Brock. Let's play GM. If you're the GM of the Niners, going into this offseason, depending on what happens, I mean, we don't know if they're going to win the Super Bowl. We don't know what's going to happen, right? Do you give him his fat contract? Because there's something you said that I really liked what you said earlier today. And no one's talking about this. And you said it, and I was like, holy shit. Why aren't we talking about this? Would you re-sign him to a fat contract? Or would you franchise him?
I wouldn't sign him. I would not extend him right now. What is he doing off of one good year? Look what happened when the Niners did that with Jimmy Garoppolo. Look what happens when teams do that off of one good year. That one good year, teams catch up to you. You end up digressing. Now, one thing I disagree with you in the sense of shotgun at the goal line, right? Why is it when other quarterbacks do it, it's okay because they're elite quarterbacks. But then when a lot of the 49er fan base is criticizing Kyle for doing it, but yet they're calling Brock Purdy an elite quarterback, comparing him to Patrick Mahomes and to the Lamar Jacksons, the Josh Allens of the world. But then when Kyle puts him in 4th and 2, puts the ball in his best player's hands, his elite quarterback, as some 49ers fans would say, it's an issue. It's not an issue. Because what you're doing is you're giving your quarterback the ability to see what he wants, and I guarantee you he has the ability to go, time out. I don't like what I see. We're at 4th and 2. I don't like what I see. So at the end of the day, Kyle gives him the ability to call a timeout. So when we're looking at this, I would not extend Brock right now. I don't think Brock's playing good football. Right now, you're 9 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and they're not. And the thing is they're not interceptions that are tipped by the receiver or batted at the line of scrimmage, popped in the air. He's throwing into double coverage. He's throwing into stuff that he does not know what's going, like what he's seeing. For example, he should have had 3 interceptions. He's lucky he threw the ball into the back of Dominic Puny, or 4 interceptions. Lucky he threw into the back of Dominic Puny's head. He was throwing a whip route to Juice. It would have been picked off. It would have been picked off. So it's like he's not seeing the field right. And right now, you cannot extend a quarterback like that right now. He has weapons. And I know people are like, well, losing BA hurts his weapons. Let's look across the NFL. George Kittle's an all-pro. Some quarterbacks don't even have all-pros on their roster.
Yeah.
Jawan Jennings. I remember like 2-3 weeks ago when they played the Rams, 49er fans are saying he's one of the best receivers in the league. They're saying he's potentially an all-pro receiver. You know what's changing? You have Debo, an all-pro receiver. You have Jordan Mason, a running back who is top 5 in rushing yards, efficiency. He's running the ball really well. So you just drafted a rookie first rounder. There should be no excuse on he doesn't have weapons. I don't want to hear that excuse for Brock Purdy the remainder of the season because he has weapons. He has weapons. It's for me, and I know I'm sounding like extremely critical of him. I think Brock is a really, really good quarterback. But now when you have to have the conversation of should you pay him $65 million? Tom Brady said it very often. And this is something I'm taking with I take Tom Brady's word because I believe he, like he said, offensive line is the most important thing for quarterbacks. But he also he mentioned Brock Purdy as not seeing the field right and average arm strength multiple times. He kept pounding average.
No, and one of the things that makes me wonder is that, you know, you see it a lot in Major League Baseball where you have a pitcher come out and he'll have just a dominant year. And you're like, wow, this guy's really good. But then what happens? The league adapts to them, right? So then they start noticing his tendencies. Even if you're a batter or you're a hitter and you're really good, they notice your tendencies. So then they start pitching where you can't hit the ball, where you have a hard time. I sort of get that feeling when it comes to Kyle Shanahan's offense is that it feels like he's running the same kind of plays he was running last year, but the difference is that the defenses are aware of it. You saw that play where it was a play action and then a quick crossing route to Brandon Ayuk. It got batted down by a linebacker. The linebacker moved out to cover that spot because he knew he was going to throw there. And it just seems like a lot of plays that they're running, Brock isn't finding anyone open because the defense already knows what they're trying to run. And so then Brock has to kind of improvise and start running around, which is not the best thing for him or the offense.
There's guys
go ahead.
There's guys open off field.
There's guys open, but it seems like where he wants to go with the ball, he's having a hard time getting it to that receiver. Either they're not getting separation, they're not getting open, or the defense is playing for that receiver.
So then is that a Kyle fault? If they're open and Brock can't get it to them, is that a Kyle fault or is that a Brock issue?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because it obviously takes the guys are open. NFL terms, a yard is open, right? Us Niner fans have gotten so used to Niner receivers being wide
open,
right? Like 4 or 5 yards separation because of Kyle. If you're not getting that, but there's still 1 or 2 yards open, the quarterback has to get the ball to that guy. He's open. So that's what I'm looking at. It's like he's open. They're open. You just got to have the arm talent to make that kind of throw. That's just how I see it.
Patel writes, Brock currently the number 3 in passing yards, and his rating fell to where Lawrence, Hurts, Love, and Cousins are. They got paid.
We're going off of passing yards. Like
that's passing yards. Deshaun Watson had great passing yards one year. We saw what happened to him. Poor guy.
Like, passing yards doesn't necessarily mean the quarterback is dicing somebody up. Like that, it really doesn't. Because what happens is, let's say you're down 20 points. For example, Baker Mayfield last night, how many yards passing did he have? Like 340? Did he play great?
No.
They were down. He had 2 interceptions. They were down. He had 370 yards passing. He had 2 interceptions in the first half. They were down so bad. He had to throw the ball. And guess what his rating was? 97.5. So we're gonna go off of these stats. Did he play good? No. His numbers look great. 3 touchdowns, 97.5 passer rating. But that doesn't necessarily mean the quarterback is having a great game.
Patel writes, Clutch arguing in subjective instead of objective. Look, I think the thing is this, is that like, if you are a person of numbers, right? Which I tend to be. You can read numbers and it'll tell you a whole different story of how the game really was. This game in particular, I mean, the final score, 28-18, a 10-point game, it wasn't even really a 10-point game. It was worse than that. But at the end of the day, that's how it looks. The Brock's numbers in this game don't lie. I mean, a 36 passer rating, that's the lowest passer rating he's ever had. I think that when it comes to like the Brock Purdy world, I feel like this is more of his second year. And I think that defenses are adjusting to him. And he has to find a way to adjust back to what defenses are doing to him. And I think that's where he's having a hard time. Like you said, there are plays. I'm not going to claim to be a master at watching film. I think you probably do a better job than I do, but I've seen plays where receivers are open. Now, the question is, was the ball supposed to go to those receivers when they were open, or were they supposed to go somewhere else? And I think that a lot of times when his first read isn't there are times where he can progress through his reads depending on what line or what defense he's playing against. But against the elite defenses, he seems rushed. He seems indecisive. And he has a hard time getting the ball to an open receiver. Marco, let me ask you, when we look at the elite defenses, or at least elite defensive coordinators, Spags, Flores, Schwartz, it's not good. Against Spags, Kyle's 0-5, 0-3 against Flores, 1-8 versus Schwartz, and Brock has been a part of that as well. Do you think that the more complex, more difficult defenses are what he cannot overcome?
Defenses that blitz a lot, what it does is you can't run into the blitz, right?
Right.
Well, if you're blitzing, it doesn't make sense for any coach to run into a blitz. What do they got to do? They got to throw the ball more. You can't get into your run game. Now your offense is out of whack.
Yeah.
That's the issue, right? Like it's how do you continue to run the ball when defenses are blitzing at you? And I think that's one of those ones where Kyle has to figure it out, man. You have to figure it out. If you can't coach against guys who are blitzing often, there's issues, because there's other teams that are getting blitzed often and their offenses don't look this bad.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that we talk about Andy Reid and how he's able to scheme receivers open, scheme players open to get them the ball, and I think that's where Kyle somehow doesn't really have that ability. He's more of a system guy where he's like, okay, this play should work because if they run their routes right, this guy should be open, as opposed to saying, I'm going to run these plays because I want to get this guy open. It just seems like he's kind of a system, and he's not finding, certain receivers at certain times, at least in my opinion.
We both just got done saying earlier that last year we saw dudes wide open, right? Mm-hmm. He could do it. He could scheme dudes open. It's right now, it's not happening for whatever reason. We know he could do it. Just right now, it's not happening.
Chris Hepner writes, Sunday night versus the Cowboys is do or die for the Niners. Let's talk about the upcoming matchup against the Cowboys. How important is this game for the Niners to win going into their bye week?
Extremely. You lose, your season's over.
It's over.
You're not coming back 3-5 with this roster that's older. You start putting self-doubt. Do we have it? What it takes? Super Bowl hangover is real when you go 3-5. You go 4-4, all right, you get a week off, possibly get Christian McCaffrey back. Guys could deal with their little banged up injuries that they're dealing with. And then you can try to go on a run. But if you're 3-5, you can still go on a run, but you gotta be perfect the rest of the way.
Like, you can only lose like one more game and end the season at 10-6. You know what I mean? Like, you can get in the playoffs with a 10-6 record in this division, but that's saying that you're only going to lose maybe one more time. And you still got the Packers, the Lions, the Bills. You still have a lot and then not to mention the rest of the NFC West you've already lost to, except for the Seahawks. You still got all of them as well. So the challenge is definitely there. let's go into real quick when it comes to the Cowboy game. Give me your score prediction for the Niners game, or for the Niners Cowboys game. What do you think the score is going to be at the end of the game? This is way too early, but we're going to ask anyway.
I typically don't like to predict scores, but I'm gonna say 28-20 Niners win.
I think again, watching the Chiefs game and seeing how badly the Niners played, I started thinking about it, and I was just like, this is what Cowboys fans feel like when they play the Niners. You know, they just can't do anything right. You're like, oh man, this is a terrible feeling. It's also how like the way Packers fans feel. Although Packers games usually are closer, and then we end up winning anyway. Like my buddy's a huge Packer fan. He hates the Niners. He's like, I fucking hate the Niners because they always knock him out. Yeah, definitely. Steve Reds have Seattle winning 4 more games, not without DK Metcalf.
He's not out. He's not be out that long.
That was a nasty leg injury too. When he landed and his leg bent the other way, I was just like, ugh. It was a rough week for receivers. A whole bunch of them went down. Look at Godwin last night. That was awful. His foot is like rough. Sideways. I was like, oh. Even the defender was like, oh shit. Like, sorry, bro. I didn't mean to do that. Yeah, that was pretty scary. But for me, at least, I think the Niners do win against the Cowboys. I think they win 31-17. I think, again, they're going to have a game against the Cowboys where they're going to make all of us feel like, oh, we're back. We did it. We're back. Niners are back. And then they're going to go into the bye. My dream is that they go into the bye. Coming out of the bye, you get Christian McCaffrey back, which is going to change the entire offense. When you watch highlights of the Niners last year with McCaffrey, their offense looks so different. You're like, wow, he makes a huge difference. And I think that this year, exactly. And I think that like this year definitely shows you the effect that not only Christian McCaffrey had on the team, but having both Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw on the defense. That made a huge impact against the run game, against the passing game. It goes to show you how much they leaned on those players. And now they don't have them. Now when you have Devondre Campbell out there, you can easily see the difference between him and Dre Greenlaw. It's like night and day.
Well, you can see the difference between Devondre Campbell and D. Winters.
Yeah. D. Winters is flying around the field, although, dude, I don't get it. Mahomes makes that run, and you're like, dude, they're all like, oh, he's going to go out of bounds. And he just keeps on running, and they're like, oh, shit. Like, if I'm D. Winters, I'm just like, I don't give a fuck. I'm just going to blow him up.
You got it.
You know what I mean? You got to, because he has to have that feeling where he's like, oh, fuck, I guess I can't do that anymore. Like, you want to put some fear in the guy. He had an opportunity to blow him up. So did Mustafa, and somehow Mustafa got blown up in the end zone. That was another embarrassing play. Mahomes runs in for a touchdown and then just blows up Mustafa. I was like, oh, he's one of our hardest hitting safeties. He just got leveled, you know? I don't know if he pulled up or what.
I know Steve-O keeps asking. I know he's asked once or twice now. He said winner touches him while out of bounds. It doesn't matter if you touch a player while out of bounds. I know you might be confusing it with if you touch the ball while out of bounds, the ball is dead. But I don't know how it works if the runner that is holding the ball. If you touch the ball while it's out of bounds, while you're out of bounds, then it's a dead ball.
Yeah, I would have blown him up. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm taking the 15. I'm just lying.
I don't care. I'm just gonna light him up. Yeah. Just for every Niner fan would have loved that. They would have been like, yeah, 15 yards, whatever. We're gonna lose anyway. I think that's one of the things too is that this is a non-division game, a non-conference game, so it doesn't affect our overall chances to make the playoffs. But this was a real mindfuck game. Losing this game, it was like the Chiefs just slapped the Niners down. Like, all right, we're out of here. Yeah, that was fun. They dominated all fronts, and Mahomes didn't even have a good game, and he still was more poised in the pocket. I mean, look, the guy's won 3 Super Bowls. He's not a bad quarterback. He's a fucking really good quarterback, and like you said, he has that kind of Steph Curry, where when he's on the when he's on the field, he just does things that other quarterbacks can't do because he can slow the game down and be like, yeah, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to run here, and I'm going to get the first down. You know, it's like he just slows it down and just does it. And we saw in the Super Bowl in that last drive, he went right down the field and scored. He ran through the Niners defense like it was diarrhea. They couldn't stop him. They're just like, oh, it was just like, come on, you guys, put some pressure on him. And every time you couldn't find anybody, he's like, well, I'm just going to run. You know, and they're just like, oh, God, he's running. Get him. It was just bad.
He's a quarterback. You got to just light him up one good time. It's the first time he runs, you just got to light him up.
I mean, when was the last time you ever saw Mahomes get lit up by a defender?
You see it every once in a while, like on the sideline, because he doesn't want to go out of bounds and he's trying to get that call. But it's like, dog, like the NFL got to stop calling calls like that if they're baiting the defender. Like there's like, well, for example, it's essentially him running out of bounds and not running towards the sideline, acting like he's going out of bounds and cutting up field is exactly like the fake slide that the college banned. Like quarterback can't fake slide and then keep going. It's just weird. Like, I don't know. I feel like if you're playing a guy like Patrick Mahomes, if he's scrambling, you gotta take the 15-yard penalty. Like, you can't give up that 30-yard run because that's a back-breaking play. Either way, you're giving up 15 yards, so who cares, right?
I mean, look, as we round things out on our Niner segment, we're talking with Marco Martinez of Clutch Gene Sports here on the NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. The part that scares me the most is something you brought up, that teams are playing Brock defensively like they were playing Jimmy Garoppolo. And that's scary because, look, lately it seems like the Niners find these quarterbacks and then they slowly begin to regress. We saw it with Colin Kaepernick. We saw it with Jimmy Garoppolo. Are we seeing that with Brock Purdy, or do you think Brock will rebound from this and have a stronger second half of the year?
I mean, he should, right? Like,
he should, but I'm asking you, do you think that he'll bounce back? And this is not a knock on you or anybody. This is just an opinion. Do you think that he'll bounce back this season?
I think his numbers will be better, but I don't think it's going to be like Brock Purdy not turning the ball over and throwing 3 touchdowns a game or 2 touchdowns a game. Last year he was getting some easy gimme touchdowns too. Like, that's what people forget about that. Like, he was getting touchdowns we normally would run at the 1 yard line, or touchdown passes to Christian McCaffrey at the 1 yard line, right? Like, or a little gimme Debo flip it 1 yard. That's a gimme touchdown. So it's like, does he get those stats? Probably not. But they're gonna be up from what they are now. That's for sure. I don't see him being a 9 for 7 touchdown and interception ratio guy the remainder of the season. Because if that's the case, he's throwing 18 touchdowns to 14 interceptions. Definitely can't be a quarterback if he has those kind of stats.
No. I think that if he has a bad season the remainder of the year, I don't think you offer him the big franchise quarterback contract. He still has one more year in his contract, I believe, after this year. Because the idea is that you don't want to let him get to free agency because then he could take off. But you also have that franchise tag. I think you have options based on how he performs the rest of the year. I think Brock can bounce back. I think that he will bounce back. He has a good head on his shoulders. That doesn't always mean anything. I mean, look at Alex Smith. Everybody's like, oh, Alex Smith is so intelligent. He's so smart. Such a smart football guy. And then he struggled for most of his career until he finally figured it out when Harbaugh came around. So last thing I'm going to ask you before we take a break. Do you think the Niners should be shopping for a defensive player or for a wide receiver?
Defense. I don't. They got, like I said earlier, like if you look across the NFL, they have enough weapons on offense for the quarterback. Like usually you say a quarterback should go get or you should go get a weapon for your quarterback when you're receiving core or you don't have a good tight end and stuff like that. Then you should go do it. Defensive line is just bad. They can't stop the run. They're not getting after the quarterback like they wanted Leonard Floyd to. You got to make a decision at the defensive line at some point, but it has to be a guy who, if you're trading a pick for, I don't get the stance of trade a pick for a half a season rental. When the Niners do stuff like that, it's like, why would you trade a pick for a half a year rental?
It doesn't make any sense.
Go get a guy. If you're going to trade a third rounder, go get a guy who's at least here for 2 years. Or for this year and next.
But if you want an elite pass rusher, now I'd say that in last year they got Chase Young. We're like, woo! And then he ended up being Chase Young or like Jog Run or Jog Young. And he's like, oh. But a couple guys' names that stick out to me that I would love for them to make an attempt to get. One is Max Crosby. I don't think it would happen, but if we got Max Crosby, that would be phenomenal. The other guy that there's been rumors that teams are inquiring about his services, about trying to make a trade for him, is Myles Garrett. Now, that's a guy I would give up number ones for. Imagine Myles Garrett and Nick Bosa on each end. That's a huge difference maker right there. I would love to get Myles Garrett.
I might have saw that he's having surgery on something. I could have sworn I was on X earlier, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and someone had posted that he's having surgery. I could be completely wrong. And it could be. I
haven't heard that.
It could be one of those stupid freaking fake accounts where I was scrolling through and I saw that really fast. Man, if they could get one of those two guys, that's crazy. That would be an insane trade where I would be all for it because those two guys are game changers. But a guy that should be thrown in there is Jadeveon Clowney.
Jadeveon Clowney would help.
Absolutely. You get after the quarterback a little bit. I mean, honestly, the main thing is stopping the run. Like, if you can't stop the run in the playoffs, how are you going to slow down David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Jacobs? Who else do they have to see in the NFC that's a good running back? Like, how do you stop these teams when they run the ball at you? If you can't, don't even plan on getting past the championship round.
Well, I mean, that's the question, is that do you go after a premier pass rusher or do you go after a guy who's a premier run stopper? Because that's where you're the weakest. You can't stop the run as well as you want to. And I think there have been games where they've done a good job at that. But on Sunday, they didn't do a very good job. They did early on, and then they just started pounding the rock with Kareem Hunt, and they just fell apart. They turned into butter in the fourth quarter. But we'll see what they do as we move closer to the trade deadline. Marco, thanks for coming on, dude. What do you got cooking for the rest of the week? And where can they find you and all your content?
So you guys can find me at Clutch Gene Sports on YouTube, on X, Marco_Mart 1205. Should be going live with my guy Rohan Chakravarti this week. Possibly be live again with Ashley Ariana on my channel. But that's where you guys can catch me. I try to do 2 shows a week, roughly. If I have time, try to do more. My biggest thing right now is I do a lot of other stuff that I shouldn't be doing, like work-wise, take on extra work. Every time I get asked, I can't say no. I don't know how to say no. So
this is extra work. I'm sorry.
No, not extra work. Like, this is for me. It's like, all right. Like, I actually told my boss, like, hey, I'm about to be doing a quick live segment. So she's like, okay, perfect. I'm like, cool. Like, I got to get away from work. So yeah, my job's so cool, man.
I was gonna say, if I had a boss, I could be like, hey, I'm gonna go do a live stream right now. Like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, cool. Sign me up.
Yeah, it's fun, man. I enjoy it. So I appreciate you for having me on, my man.
Of course, Marco Martinez of Clutch Gene Sports. Thanks for coming on and talking to us about the Niners. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Golden State Warriors, Stanford football, San Jose State Spartans, and a whole lot more.
Cover Stanford for a year. That seems so bad.
In the ACC, it's not getting any better either. I tried to spin it like, hey, they're making a difference. And then it was like, okay, maybe not. You're watching the NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Are you a fan of Buffalo sports? Are you thinking of changing loyalties and becoming a Buffalo sports fan? Do you even know where Buffalo is on the map? Did you know Canada is closer to Buffalo than New York City? Welcome to the Buffalo Huddle, every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Patty Bax. This is a podcast designed for you, the passionate sports fan. I know you love your sports. Who doesn't? I cover Buffalo sports and so much more by bringing in the human elements. I call it Buffalo Sports with a Twist. Join me as we take a journey into the world of Buffalo sports. I guarantee you'll fall in love with Buffalo just like I did. Each week we start with an inspiration, question of the day, a Buffalo fun fact, and our weekly challenge to you, the listener. Come huddle up with me every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time for the Buffalo Huddle with Patty Bax on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. As we say in Buffalo, go Bills!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy Dentarius Lava.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That give you guys spending time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
Minutes past the hour here on NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We're going to be staying with football and moving over to college football as we talk about the Stanford Cardinal. Now, the Cardinal had a tough game last week. They went against Notre Dame and got spanked. And this week, where did it go? This week, oh, that's weird. Anyway, this week they went against SMU and they lost 40-10. Not a good showing for Stanford. They fall to 2-5. SMU, the number 21 ranked SMU, moves to 6-1. Let's go over to San Jose State. Now, San Jose State has had a really good year this year, and I've been really happy with what they've done. They beat Wyoming 24-14, and they improved to 5-2, while Wyoming drops to 1-6. Looking at the stats for San Jose State, let's see. Nick Nash, 10 catches for 98 yards and a touchdown again. He's their best player. He is a baller. Justin Lockhart had 4 catches for 129 yards. His longest was a 57-yard reception. Floyd Chalk, 12 rushes, 91 yards. And Walker Eggett was the quarterback. He took over for Emmett Brown. He was 20 of 38 for 318 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. So the San Jose State Spartans improve to a record of 5-2. And real quick, I had a bunch of banners. They went away. That's kind of strange. Where'd they go? We also got San Jose Earthquakes. They fall to the Los Angeles FC 3-1. They've lost 2 in a row. And the Earthquakes dropped to a season low here. Let me just find their record. They dropped to, where is it? They make it so hard. 6-25. So it's tough going for the Quakes. 6-25-3. So it is what it is for the San Jose Earthquakes. The Sharks, they've dropped 2 in a row. They dropped their last game to the Colorado Avalanche 4-1. And on the 18th, they dropped to the Winnipeg Jets 8-3, and they fall to 0-4-2. So rough start again for these San Jose Sharks. It's tough sledding for them. I think they'll figure it out though. Jumping over to the Golden State Warriors. Now the Warriors dropped some news, and let's go ahead and bring that up now. Now the Warriors have their home opener. Actually, they have their season opener tomorrow against the Portland Trail Blazers at 7:00 at the Moda Center in Portland. Okay. Let me see. Where's this at? But there was some news that came out. That's not it. There was some news that came out about the Warriors in terms of some of the news that they made about some trades that they were interested in acquiring players. I'm trying to pull it up right now, and my internet is just like freaking out. There we go. Let's see. Is this it? Is this it? There we go. And this is from the Nicotina.net community. If you go over and become a member and join the community over at Nicotina.net under DreArea Sports, you'll get access to news updates like this all day long that I post. Warriors wanted both Paul George and Lauri Markkanen. That was something that they were trying to get. It wasn't either or. They were literally trying to get both of those guys to make a big splash in the free agent market. Unfortunately, the Clippers weren't playing ball with them, and Danny Ainge was Danny Ainge, according to Draymond Green. talking with Anthony Slater of The Athletic. But I think that's a really interesting to think about. If Dunleavy could have pulled off getting both Paul George and Lauri Markkanen on the Warriors, that would have made them an instant contender for a championship, in my opinion. I don't see how it wouldn't be. On top of that, they also inquired about Karl Anthony Towns. They actually reached out about a possible trade to acquire Karl Anthony Towns. Unfortunately, talks didn't really take off, and unfortunately, they were not able to land because they did not have the trade package that the T-Wolves were looking for, and so they went over to New York and got Julius Randle. But that would have been a huge move, getting Karl Anthony Towns on the Warriors. Would have been huge. Drew's asking, what's up with not extending Kuminga, Dre? I think Kuminga will get extended. I think that they want to see how he performs this year. And maybe he's being stubborn. Maybe he wants a much bigger contract than what they're offering him. We don't know. But I think they get that deal done because, I mean, he's a guy that so far in the preseason, he's looked dominant. And it's a guy that you cannot let get away. He's your number 2 scorer next to Steph Curry. So letting him get away, it would be a bad thing for the Warriors because he's your future. And so I think they got to get that deal done sometime during the season. Now remember, Kuminga has requested a trade from the Warriors twice in his career. He's not been happy with the way that they treated him. So I think that, when he says, I want extension, they probably, maybe they've offered him an extension, but he's like, no, I want more than that. Because he knows how good he really is. So I think that it's a deal that's going to get done. It's just going to take time. But they got to keep him around. He's too good. Now, going up against Portland coming up tomorrow, I think the Warriors are going to win this game. They're favored by 5.5 points. So far this preseason, they went undefeated. They went 5-0 or 6-0 in the preseason. Now, that doesn't mean much of anything. But when you look at it as a whole, I think that the Warriors look much more competitive. Their ability to move the ball around the court looks extremely good. You have a lot of playmakers on the court and on the team. You have Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Podziemski, Kyle Anderson. You got a lot of guys who can move the ball around, and I like that. I like the acquisition of Kyle Anderson. A lot of people were like, oh, he's slow. I don't like that guy. I think what he brings is a calmness to the court. He has a good basketball mind. And I think that he's going to help this team a lot throughout the season. Not to mention, you're getting year 2 of Trace Jackson Davis, who I think is going to be a huge factor in their season. And we saw how much of a factor he was his rookie year. So I think year 2 is going to be even more of that. So I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited to see Draymond set up a lot of other players. Podziemski setting up other players. They are able to move the ball with a lot of speed and fluidity that you didn't see last year. With Chris Paul, they seem to be more of a station-to-station team. Like, okay, let's run our offense, bring the ball up the court. These guys are running with the ball. They're passing the ball. And I think Buddy Hield is set up to have a big year. Is he going to be the next coming of Klay Thompson? Well, I mean, depending on which Klay Thompson you're talking about. But I think that in terms of having a spot shooter or a guy who can create his own shot, I think he's going to be a huge factor this year. Because now, if Steph Curry's off the court, you still have a shooter in Buddy Hield out there with the Kuminga, with the Moody, who recently got extended as well, which I think was a great contract signing. I love the fact that they extended Moses Moody. I was afraid they were going to lose Moody for the past couple of years, but they've hung on to him. And I like that. And I think that this year, they are better built in terms of depth. Now, some people were like, man, what are you talking about? I don't know about that. I think that's honestly what I think. When you look at their roster, I mean, you got Steph Curry, Kuminga, Draymond, Wiggins, Podziemski. But when you look at the depth that we have on this team, Buddy Hield, Melton, Moses Moody, Gary Payton. What's his name? Obviously Trace Jackson Davis, Looney, Wiggins. You got a lot of players down on the bench that can do a lot for this team. And I think the deeper we go with this team, the farther that they're going to take us. The problem is that they have to stay injury-free, and I think that's where they're going to run into some problems, is that because you got some older players in a Kyle Anderson, in a Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Wiggins, you're going to run into some injuries. Buddy Hield. But defensively, I think they're going to be a lot better defensively because of guys like Kyle Anderson, especially because of guys like Gary Payton, Moses Moody, Melton. Obviously, Draymond. I think I already said that. But I think defensively, they're going to step up, and they're going to do things that are really going to surprise you this year. Now, are they world beaters? No. But I think that the way that this team has been constructed, I think that they're deeper with more experienced players. And now your young players, your Moody, your Kumingas, they're experienced players now. So they're not going to be those young players come off the bench who have little experience. No, these are the guys you lean on now. And you surround them with more guys that are experienced. Melton, Hield, Anderson, Wiggins. So I'm really excited about the Warriors season starting tomorrow against the Portland Trail Blazers. I think the Warriors are going to win this game easily. And I think that they're going to be a force in the Western Conference, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I'm really excited for this team. Now, if they would have got Paul George and Lauri Markkanen, that would have been huge. But what would they have to give up? Probably a lot of these players. They'd have less depth, but more stars. And I kind of like that they're going with the depth, even though they wanted to go with the stars, but the stars didn't work out. The stars didn't align for them. So that's rough. That is rough. Guys, that's going to do it for the NorCal Sports Report. I want to thank everyone who came out here today. I know we went a little over the hour because we got some other shows starting. Gosh, this thing. But guys, I want to thank Larry B for setting this up. I want to thank Marco Martinez for coming out and talking about the Golden State Warriors. Talking about the San Francisco 49ers. That's how tired I am. And the Warriors we talked about later in the show. Guys, will the Niners bounce back after their loss to Kansas City Chiefs? We'll find out this Sunday night against the Dallas Cowboys. I'm predicting a win of 31-17 against the Cowgirls because we always dominate the Cowboys. Come on. And the Warriors start their season tomorrow. I might do a post-game show tomorrow night talking about the Warriors game, so stay tuned for that over on DreArea Sports. Make sure you subscribe to this channel over on IE Sports Radio. Go to YouTube, IE Sports Radio, and subscribe. And hit that bell notification button so you're always notified of any new content our channel puts out. Because it does. The Niners need to figure it out. Will they make a trade? Will it be a receiver? Will it be a defender? A pass rusher? We'll find out. But no Brandon Ayuk for the rest of the season. They got to figure something out. Guys, you're listening to the NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We'll see you guys next time.